Okay, welcome everybody to our final meeting of the school year for the District Accountability Advisory Committee. We've got a lot to go through today, so we're going to try and keep it as close on time as we possibly can. Did we get an award winner for the Alorium Day Award yet? Or have they announced it yet?
I can speak to that.
Oh, good. There you are, Michelle. Yay.
Yeah, hi. So the award ceremony is happening on the 22nd of April, and we're actually able to have an in-person ceremony, which is exciting. We're limiting the number of people. I think it's 150 who are allowed to be there, and so award recipients were allowed to bring 3 people. And then we're just super excited to be able to have an in-person award ceremony and to honor all the nominees as well as the winners. They're all winners, and so we will have winners in the category of community member, of district personnel, as well as peer awards. So just really, really excited for that. And I think it's always a special time, but this is going to be especially powerful because for many of us, it'll be the first time that we've been in a group as large as 150 people. So really, really grateful for that opportunity. And yes, so that information will be coming out. I can't tell you who won. Okay. But and Tiffany, you could have spoken to this as well. So I didn't want to jump in front of you if you want to say anything.
Oh, no. That's okay. We were just wanted to make sure we got that in there. So yeah. That's great.
Michelle,
okay.
I'm
sorry, Tiffany?
I asked Michelle, do you want to share where the location is?
Oh, well, so there will be a live stream. So the location can be your house or your office, but the actual ceremony will be happening in the Palmer Ridge Theater Auditorium.
Oh, awesome. Good deal. Okay,
yeah,
great.
So we're really, really excited that we have the opportunity to be there. And that'll be a great venue for us too. I think it makes it extra special.
Cool. So that'll be the 22nd, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so then the other business that we need to do before we get started with Devon is that we need to go through the minutes from February 9th's meeting. Everybody got that via email from Vicki. Thank you, Vicki. Are there any questions on that, or may I have a motion to approve those minutes? So we have a motion from Holly to approve those minutes. Can I have a second? I have a second from Lauren Penny and a second from Lindsay Keynes. Thank you, ladies, to approve those minutes. So all those that would like to say aye. And we're motoring in the chat window. I think we're doing well here. Lauren, did you have a change? Go ahead and type it in, Lauren.
Oh, it's Hillary. I think she's just on her husband's account.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It won't let me change the name on the school account, but I can on my personal account. So sorry.
Okay, no problem. You're fine.
I just wanted to say that in case you needed the notes for the minutes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, so I think we've got a consensus there. So those minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive right into the new principal of Lewis Palmer Elementary School, Devon Johnson, but she's actually going to talk about HSEA virtual tour and update. And that is the link that you were given earlier to review.
Awesome. Thank you, Nanette. You all hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So I am here this evening to talk about a couple different pieces around our district. First being the D38 Homeschool Enrichment Academy. Super, super exciting and awesome program. I can't wait to tell you all about. If you did not get a chance to take a look at the video that was put together by Rachel Wardwell please do so. It's about 2 to 3 minutes long. It captures some of the best parts of our homeschool program. But to get to see kids live and engaged in those different activities is certainly something that I can't quite replicate in my pictures, but I'll do my best to do that. So thank you, Vicki. If you'd want to go ahead and jump in, thank you. What I did was I took a look at our goals from our school board, and I was trying to think about how our program fits into those. So what you'll see in our first goal, we're talking about cultivating safe, healthy, and welcoming school environments. I think that is something that really draws students into our program. We do work by the philosophy currently of the FISH philosophy, which is fantastic. It is a philosophy that started and was based in Seattle, and it spends its time focused on 4 things. We spend time playing, and we truly are all about finding the play and the fun and the hands-on, messy, loud, all of those pieces within all of our learning in our program. We spend time being there for each other. That is really important for a lot of our students that are coming in with a variety of different homeschool type of programs that they're doing on their own. So we spend a lot of time in that piece as well. Making their day, whether that be adults, whether that be other students, making sure everybody's included, making sure everybody knows that they matter when they walk in that door from the first minute they come in, as well as choosing your attitude. So you will hear, and kids can talk and speak this language to you at any point. It's a very important piece of the program at this time. Activities speak no more than to the idea of culture and safe and healthy environments. We have lots and lots of fun. So what you'll see here is a picture of one of our spirit days. That was actually during virtual learning, where we had an opportunity to participate remotely, put it together so that we could all still stay connected during that time in the spring. We have lots of activities in our program, such as field days and talent shows and performances. And we work really hard in order to focus on allowing these students to have opportunities that are difficult to replicate in their homes, that need large numbers of students, or that need lots of materials or other kinds of expertise that may not be typical that you find in your typical setting. The second goal is about high quality instruction and relevant educational experiences for all students. So what you will see here in our K-5 is our enrichment areas really focus on those 4 main areas you see here: drama, music, PE, and art. And those subtopics underneath are some examples of what you see happening at HSEA, because during those times and during those courses, our focus is helping kids discover their areas of passion. And that's, I think, one of the biggest draws to the program, is helping kids to find some of those areas that they might not experience otherwise. Pictures are better than 1,000 words, right? So what you'll see here are some examples of our students in action. This is a sample of a K-1 classroom. And I just threw in a couple of pictures of the artwork that you see around the school. The artwork at HSEA is second to none. You will also see here on the next slide the 2nd and 3rd grade. Very similar ideas, but you'll see here some pictures of kids in action in the gymnasium space, which we utilize all day long. The art room, you'll see students making and utilizing instruments as well as dance. And then also some snapshots of some of our teachers in action about welcoming and making students feel safe and comfortable in our program. When you look at grades 4 through 5, you'll see some similar things. We have students on the floor that are engaging in games, and sometimes I think we forget the importance of academic games and what we can learn from those, as well as on the left, you'll see students highly engaged in the lesson that's in that classroom regarding geography at the time. Again, some more artwork and some teachers as well. That, I believe, takes us to our middle school. We do run a middle school option, grades 6 through 8. They are combined students together with a true middle school model, if you will. So they take 5 periods during the day that are 70 minutes each, and students select their courses just like they would in a typical building. Some of the options that we have at the middle school level are a variety of, again, you hear the art, music, PE, drama, but in addition to that, we offer courses that are requested by students, whether that be survival courses or knitting and crocheting or newsletter or other types of skills, Mad Labs and science, STEM type projects as well. Quite a nice variety. On the next slide, you'll see some pictures of those students as well as some of their artwork. You'll see in the bottom the choir. We did have choir and guitars and band, and we've had lots of different other musical opportunities present as well as a kind of neat shot on the left bottom corner, you'll see if students engaged in their knitting class, and just what a neat opportunity for them to engage socially and to learn a new skill that they can take with them throughout their life. I believe, yep. Oh, field trips, one more thing there. This is year round. This was certainly difficult this year, and we've been trying to do some other things virtually, but field trips is a big part of HSEA, getting students out, experiencing some of those different settings with their peers. So that is another big part of the program. And I left the fees in there just so you can see that what's neat about HSEA is once you enroll, you're enrolled, and there are not a lot of additional expenses. We are covering most of those throughout the year with just a little bit of support on some of those outings. I believe that takes us to our staff. Staff, fun, lively. I threw this in here because I wanted you to see, we talk about play, and here's play. How do we engage with students? How do we model for them what we expect to see? Here's just a great example of that. Goal 3 is about deepening our professional learning culture to allow for continuous growth. So there are a lot of different ways that we're working on PLC. This is something I've put a lot of time and energy. Our staff, very fitting, is working on the shark and the goldfish, which fits very much with our philosophy. On top of that, we use emergenetics so that we can study the ways that we're thinking and that we're behaving in order to better communicate with each other. We're doing lots of opportunities with virtual presentations. We are currently just finishing up some final touches on a revamp of our mission and vision and what we believe and what we want to see within the program, as well as having lots of conversations about growth. This year, I think partly certainly because of COVID, but also just in addition to the positive vibes and positive feedback we're getting from the program, we have seen quite a bit of growth in our program, which is fantastic. So we're having conversations about what that means next. Goal 4 is about effective asset management and resources. And so along those lines, and thank you, Vicki, we have 143 students. I'll take that back. We actually have 140 because unfortunately we just had 3 move out of state today. But we have a nice variety and mix of students that you'll see here in our different grade levels. This is quite an increase. We did end last school year at about 113 students. So I think that might put that into perspective for you, that we are nicely in demand right now for our services for students. Program highlights. Again, here's some more pictures that will tell you the story, but here you can see some of our different events that are happening on a very regular basis. Since we only have school currently once a week on Thursdays, every Thursday is a big day. So it seems like every Thursday is either talent show or field day or art show or something really big and exciting is happening. We make use of those resources to make sure kids get those great opportunities. And last, our goal number 5, community relationships and effective communication. We have really worked on upping our game here in terms of having better communication with our community. And what you'll see here on that next slide is, there you go, surveys and lots of communication. Our website has had a nice revamp this year as well. If you click in and take a look at that, you'll see we've added a lot of different tabs. We've added virtual classroom opportunities for parents to get in and see what we're doing. We have added opportunities to have copies and virtual tours and some other ways to help engage our families and let them see what we're doing in our space. We hope to get more volunteer opportunities back and going here in the upcoming year, as well as some additional events that help support that family and staff and student connection. HSEA, what questions do you have or what might I answer for you? It can't be that easy.
It was a great presentation. I mean, it's really thrilled. And I love how it showed off how GraceBest is being used. Because I think that's something that, there's all the stuff going on with GraceBest right now anyway, with the trying to fix it all and everything else. But I wish this would have come out 2 years ago, even just to see how much. I've been in there several times, so I know how much it's being used, but it's amazing to see how much it's being used and how, there's space and the kids are having fun and there's artwork and it's being used as a school. People just don't, they think it's just sitting there because they don't see the activities. So I think it's great. And I think that having all of these wonderful things available for the kids in the district is wonderful, because it gives them a chance to get that socialization as well. So you're doing an awesome job.
Matt, thank you. I appreciate that feedback very much. I agree. I think the space and what the kids are doing in there is it's hard for people to see that without really seeing it. Feel free to share that presentation out with people who want to see more about what's happening over there. In addition, I see a question in the chat about out of district students from Larkspur, and I would say yes, we do have some out of students there, but we are getting them also from the D20 and D11 area as well. Just a variety of different places that we're starting to see this year. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of trends continue moving forward. Let's see, how many years has HSEA K-8 been in existence? Ooh, I want to say this is year 9, Tiffany. This is I'm just finishing my second year there, and you laugh, I kind of have to think about markers as we go. So prior to that, we had 3 years with Mr. Stovall that were there, and then I count back, but 9 years at this time. No high school option, that is correct at this time, it is K-8. We've had a few conversations about that. We know that may be a possibility or something to discuss down the road. We also know that with the expectations at the high school level, that changes the game a little bit. So there'd be a lot of research involved in making something like that happen. And would you ever do more than 1 day a week? Oh, I'm so glad you were to ask that question, Hillary, not Lauren. And Hillary, yes, in fact, we are in the middle currently of moving to 2 days a week for this next school year. With that being said, caveat is that would be 2 separate days, 2 separate groups of students. So we would have an opportunity to grow the program to 2 equal days, if you will. We know that we're expecting that there'll be a smaller day moving forward next year and a larger day continuing perhaps on Thursdays, with the opportunity to keep moving forward on that second day. With our announcement of our new principal that will be stepping in that space is Melissa Gibson Steiner. And I'm super excited. I actually got to introduce her to our homeschool community this evening in a Meet the Principal event for her tonight, and that was wonderful. And she will be really taking that next step lead on how to make that happen. We're working together right now to see what does that look like? How do we get that staffing in there? As you can imagine, with our homeschool, with our staff, we have some of our staff that are homeschool parents as well, and want 2 versus 1 days. We have some of them that have other jobs and other things that are happening on the other days. So that's a part of the consideration, but we're working out those details right now and super excited to move in that direction. The program is definitely ready to grow. And does HSCA utilize teachers from other schools within D38, or are they dedicated to HSCA exclusively? So the answer to that is they can share between spaces. We currently only have 1 staff member that is doing that. And that's working out well most of the time. We've had a couple of overlaps of scheduling between the 2 schools, and that gave me an opportunity to teach a class. So that was great too. Awesome. Well, on that note, I was told to stay on time this evening. So I'm going to take off my hat and I'm going to put on my other hat, and I'm going to now talk to you about curriculum.
Okay, go right for it.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to give Vicki just 1 second to pull that up. And I want to give you, this will be short and sweet, but I want to give you an overview of where we are with curriculum K-12 and just kind of the direction we're heading. Awesome. So thank you, Vicki. So I'm going to now step into the services team and talk to you about that curriculum update. This, what you see here, used to be, I would say this was our curriculum cycle. And I want to be cautious in the words that I use with this. We have a 5-year cycle, and the idea with curriculum is that we are rolling out district consensus maps that we have worked through with teachers that are based on state standards and expectations at that level. We then move forward with implementing new resources to support the content and the skills that we've said students need to learn. Our next step following that is implementation of those new resources and professional development for teachers. And then that's when we start to really look at our assessments and we evaluate the product and how's it working and is it meeting our needs. With that being said, we like to continually do that for every 5 years. Now, I was fortunate when I came in, this is just finishing my 4th year in this role, I got to start implementing and working on some of these adoptions, and many of them hadn't been done for a while, and that was completely due to funding. So when I say we have this cycle, we're doing our best to stay on this cycle, but it's heavily dependent on funding and kind of where we are with things. So for example, if you look at this year, 2020, 2021, and it says electives, it's CTE, world language and K-5 literacy. We ended up spending a good amount of our time this year working on K-5 literacy. We are in the middle of just wrapping up with some decisions at our elementary schools about which resources we're going to be using and how we're going to roll out some new products that have been approved at the state level as products that are at the caliber that we would expect them to be so that they meet the requirements we have of our READ Act and other expectations that have come down into our standards in the past few years. So we're excited to see where that's going to go. We do have some funding from the board to help support that, as well as our different schools that will be contributing to that process and helping out. You'll notice it says on year 6, which would be the next school year, that it says K-5 literacy again. Unfortunately, K-5 literacy is a big deal, as we know, meaning that it's going to require a lot of funds. And so we expect that some funds to come out of both of those years and pots of money. We're looking forward to being able, thanks to the budget, maybe to put back in some PE, health, and physics next year that we're looking at. And then you'll see in year 7, quite a big year that's coming up there in terms of high school math, biology, science, social studies. So sometimes we say we're moving forward with those with just a review and a map, and sometimes that involves resources. It also sometimes depends on the need and the quality of what resources are in place. A few years back, I would have said that most of our resources were print only, and we are now at the point that most of our resources are both print and digital, if not more on the side of digital. So that's definitely a shift you've seen in the last few years. But this is something that we have on our district website, and you can keep looking at it, knowing that we do change that as needed along the way. Next slide, please, Vicki. Oh, the asterisk, thank you for asking, just means that we are making an assumption that resource will probably involve funds to move forward with a new adoption of resources. As far as the curriculum mapping, you'll see it is a K-12 alignment's our purpose. We want to stay up to date with standards, resources, best practices for instruction. All of those layers are very important. I did talk to you about the process of our years a little bit already. And then I just wanted you to see, so when we actually do our district consensus map, sometimes there's confusion between curriculum and resources and what that means for our students and our teachers. But it's really important to know that when our teachers are working together and we are looking at our state standards, what we're actually taking a look at is the content, the nouns of what we want students to learn versus the skills of what we want them to be able to do. Within the skills, we're thinking about the rigor and how deep and how involved are we getting within each of those skills and within that content. Big picture, we're talking essential questions. And then that follows up with what resources do we want to put into place to support what we want to do for our students and what they need to learn. Right alongside that with our curriculum, instruction, and assessment coherence is, do we have the right assessments in place to make sure that our products are what we need them to be? Do we need to do some alignment work with that, et cetera? And then we make sure that, of course, they're aligned with the standards, and what kind of timeline are we looking at for our teachers to make sure they are able to get through the different content that they're able to appropriately, and of course, differentiate for our different learners along the way. So it's a big, important piece, but I think we're doing a pretty good job with it right now. All of that's housed in our system called Atlas. And with that, Vicki, you can go ahead and switch slides for me. Thank you. So I just threw this in case you ever have questions about digital curriculum. Knowing that we're switching that way, we certainly know, and we've seen this year, that technology is the new norm. And if we need to prepare our students for college, most of our colleges are shifting to digital books only. And so it's really important that we're getting students ready, as well as some of those other pathways. We want to make sure we have a vast number of resources for all of our different learners. We want to make sure that we have options for instruction as well as supports. What's really cool, one of my favorite parts of all of our digital resources are the tools that are built in. And that might be audio, from text to speech, highlighting, note-taking, flashcards, all those things that we always did on paper. There's also options to do that within the text and in the resource that students are using. Assessment banks have been vital for teachers, and I think the more we get in them, the more we're realizing what opportunities there are inside of there for us to do informal checks and understand what students are or aren't understanding along the way. Allowing teachers to spend more time on their instruction instead of preparing resources and tools. That's where we would like to spend more of our time. I'm also looking for more cost-effective things, because we know with digital, if there are mistakes in the resources or things they want to add or adjust, it's easy for them to do that and push that out, unlike our print resources that sometimes we end up having for many years. And then just being able to access all of our textbooks in one location is kind of fun. My daughter had made a comment and said, I really like that I'm not lugging 7 books around anymore, and I can pull them all up in my ClassLink single sign-on, which is kind of cool. Awesome. Vicki, next, I think there's one more. Okay, and then just our revision process. So in a typical revision year, and this is a very low one for as far as board adoptions go, we would pull teachers together, and this is the process we followed. And what I wanted you just to see is that there is quite an extensive process from the time teachers look at the products all the way to the time we put it up for review for community to take a look at and give feedback, for us then to go through all of the different layers and get approval from the school board before that purchase. And so that's a part of the process as well. That was a lot I just threw at you in a very short amount of time. But I think I have 2 minutes. If you have any questions or comments on curriculum, I'm happy to take those. Is the procedure available online? Are you talking, Nanette, about the process of steps that we follow through? Yes, absolutely. Yes, it is. I believe it's on our learning services page. If you have any issues finding it, reach out, let me know. Oh, Sean, thank you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be the new LPSS principal as well. And I'm excited to put that one hat on and hopefully do it well. Awesome. Well, thank you all. If you think of any other questions regarding curriculum or homeschool, I'm still djohnson, lewispalmer.org. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk with you about it. Thanks, Vicki.
Wonderful, wonderful, Devon. Thank you so much. Good luck. You're not gonna need it, but yeah, I agree. You're gonna leave a lot of shoes to fill there. So that's gonna be wonderful. All right, thank you so much. That was a lot. Okay, Dr. Summers and Tiffany are going to do a dual presentation here on the superintendent's update and a year-end review. So we're going to have them get started. They're going to tag team on this one for us. You guys ready?
Yep, and I believe Dr. Summers is going to kick us off.
Okay, great.
You guys able to see the PowerPoint on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So we are going to follow those footsteps that Devon left off with and try to stay on time. We've got about 30 minutes, or I think exactly 30, and there's quite a bit to cover. So I think we have a good cadence going on with questions in the chat room, which you can feel free to put in as we tag team this presentation. This title slide should actually say superintendent / board member update, so DAAC update. So Tiffany, feel free to chime in as we dive in. So hot off the press, and of course we love to celebrate our successes, and for the 3rd year in a row, Lewis Palmer School District 38 has been named one of the best communities for music education. So we want to, of course, elevate and recognize all our great music educators, our students and musicians, as well as all of our families for their active involvement and support in making our programs just absolutely fantastic. Just as a quick aside, I had a chance to go to both of the musical dress rehearsals. So Palmer Ridge last week, and I just was at Lewis Palmer High School a little bit earlier this afternoon. Fantastic. I think both of those are accessible on our online streaming. So I would highly recommend them if you have a chance, if you haven't already. Just wonderful productions, and really great to see how we're showing resiliency through all of our challenges as we're producing still great musical events, but even more so just coming together as a community and celebrating our kids and all of their great performances. So we talked a little bit about a staff update, and here's a page that formalizes that just a little bit more. So I think Devon alluded to this. Our new principal at the Homeschool Enrichment Academy is Melissa Gibson Steiner. That's a position that she will have in addition to preschool coordination. So we're still working to fill the curriculum coordinator role that Devon is moving away from. And as we know already, she will be stepping into the Lewis Palmer Elementary School realm. And then, of course, we have also a new principal at Palmer Ridge High School. We're really excited to welcome not only to Palmer Ridge, but to Colorado in Dr. Adam Frank. So his transition, matter of fact, I believe he's out here in a couple of days next week doing some work in that realm. Devon is wearing all sorts of different hats right now. It's that time of year. It's the spring. So we're finishing out with what we have 2021, but also looking ahead and gearing up for 21-22. We also will be welcoming a new chief financial officer to our team. I know that may sound like a repetitive statement. I think this is our third announcement of a CFO. We were really sad to see Shanna Seeley be in a position where she had to move back home due to family reasons. So Kathleen Kitty Overton, we're actually going to introduce her formally at our board meeting on Monday evening. And she comes to us with several years of experience in business and finance roles, a variety of roles in a couple of different districts, most recently, most notably in Fountain Fort Carson District, where she's the director of finance, where she's been for the past few years. And then she had several years in Academy District 20. And actually, she is a Monument resident. So we're really excited that she will be in a position where she can serve her home community in this role. So as I mentioned, and as we're diving into just another brief update, we could probably spend all of our time talking about where we're at currently as we continue to navigate our way through our pandemic. But certainly, I think most of you are familiar with where we are in terms of our transition, expanding the in-person learning schedule at our secondary level. So we transitioned 7th through 10th grade students beginning in March 8th. And 11th and 12th grade students came in actually a couple of days earlier than what we had originally projected. Because if you go back to those 2 days that we had for all the snow that came in, it created a huge, big schedule ripple effect. But all that to say, and of course, we still have several different dynamics that we're having to attend to. But ultimately, I think it's been, we're hearing a lot of great successes from our students and from our staff in terms of that transition and finishing out the year in that in-person learning mode. This is not a set number, but it's a roundabout and it's an approximation of about 50% or more of our staff that are fully vaccinated, which is a huge celebration. I think we certainly are seeing less of a hit, if you will, when it comes to staff quarantines as a result of this. And so we're excited about the partnerships that we've had and being able to make this work and offering the vaccines to our staff. And so looking forward to maintaining that momentum as we go forward as well. We do have graduation right around the corner. This will be at UC Health Stadium, also known as Vibes, on Friday, May 28th, Palmer Ridge High School at 9 a.m., Lewis Palmer High School at 1 p.m. Our mask mandate and other protocols continue to remain in place, at least through the end of this school year. Right now, I would tell you that we're really focusing on finishing out the year with all of the guidelines and parameters that we continue to work with without necessarily putting too much pressure on ourselves to tell exactly what everything is going to look like as we start off next school year. But really appreciate all of those efforts, again, from our students, our staff members, and our community. All right, so as we move into just a little bit more of a district view, if you will, in terms of where we are currently with our strategic plan. And by now, I think you are hopefully familiar with our 5 different goals. So we're going to zoom a little bit in. It's still more of a cursory overview. And Tiffany, if I miss anything on this, please don't hesitate to to chime right in. So within goal 1, one of the exciting developments is that we are moving toward security vestibule installation at 3 of our school sites that are still lacking those vestibules. So we have a game plan to make that happen for this summer. I know we've been talking about that for quite some time. So it's nice to see those efforts manifest in a game plan to actually make this happen. Of course, we know we have a lot in front of us when it comes to social emotional learning and mental health supports. And we really want to dive deeper into that, both in terms of how we define measures of success, spelling out our specific action plans, and continuing to leverage a variety of partnerships in that endeavor. And that will be continued and ongoing work as we come into the fall. And then there's a lot of talk right now. I think you hear, I hate to call it a buzzword because I think it's so much more, but anytime we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have been spending time really the entire year from a leadership training lens in terms of what that equity framework and what that equity lens that we're hoping to apply in service to all of our students in our system, what that represents and what that means in practical terms and in our strategies and in our efforts to ensure that every student has what they need to be successful. So we know that there's more work to be done in terms of how we not only define those terms, but also develop and further an equity framework. Consider the potential of policy development at the board level, and continue to engage and have dialogue with our community in this process. So these are meant to be some of the sub priority areas under each of those goals. So that's what is represented in the bold, and then you see that illustrated in a few more details there. Tiffany, anything else I missed on goal 1 there?
No, I think you covered it so far. You're good.
All right. I know goal 2, we are looking at this both in terms of not only how we ensure high quality and relevant educational experiences and instruction for all of our kids, but it really involves, as we know, a lot of effort, a lot of work in terms of teacher and leadership development and ongoing training. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to strengthen what instructional leadership capacity supports look like throughout our entire system. So that includes not only our onboarding for administrators and a reset, if you will, on our PLC framework as we go into the summer. But we really want to focus also on being intentional about distributive teacher leadership opportunities. We know that our teachers in the classroom, it's where it happens each and every day. So if you think about everything that we do being aligned to how we empower and how we support and how we make sure that our teachers have access to all of the right resources and supports in that endeavor, we believe that will continue to deepen and strengthen our leadership capacity within the system. I mentioned PLCs, professional learning communities. We are going to continue to invest in time and resources in terms of training and ongoing timelines, as well as, and Devon alluded to this in the curriculum presentation, the implementation of new K-5 literacy resources. So we know that there's a lot of benefit to teachers working with other teachers in terms of how those resources are going to be implemented, thinking about data-driven instructional cycles, all the different components that lead toward really quality teaching and learning environments for all of our kiddos. And continuing to define our purpose in terms of high expectations for all students. We've actually had quite a bit of discussion, not only in terms of what those essential learning outcomes are or what the benchmarks are as represented through each of the grade level expectations in all of our content areas, but we also believe that it goes really to the whole point of what do we expect from all of our D38 graduates in terms of defining what it means to be future ready, whether that's in their pursuit for college, career, or just citizenry within our greater community. So we're envisioning some community dialogue and getting student voice in that process, parents, teachers, so that we're all collectively thinking about what it means when you're a D38 graduate preparing for entry into the real world. Tiffany, anything else you want to touch on with this one?
Just something that Devon also alluded to was in our curriculum review process, we also approved and expanded our CTE programs this year. and beyond, and really excited at the different opportunities we have for our students going into transition beyond post-secondary, like our CU Succeeds program that we're looking into. So lots of opportunities for our kids.
Absolutely. And really being intentional about what those different multiple pathways are, and ensuring that really for whatever our students' interests and talents and goals happen to be, that we have supports and pathways that are reflective of those pursuits. In terms of goal 3, something that we're really wanting to ensure that we are intentional and reflective about, especially as we think from hearing from our staff, what is most meaningful in terms of employee recognition and appreciation. So we've pulled together just kind of a quick committee to take a deeper dive into that. And we're actually looking at making some revisions to some prior practices that we've implemented as a district to ensure that we are, again, really attending to what our staff find most meaningful and representative of the recognition that they so often deserve. So those are some things that we're going to be spelling out in the spring. We've got Teacher Appreciation Week right around the corner. We're looking at retirement celebrations right behind that, and some other ways that, again, we can really rally around all of our staff and make sure that we are honoring them in every possible way with really intentional actions. Supporting staff with learning and systemic professional learning opportunities. This, as you can tell, has a little bit of overlap to goal 2. So thinking about where we have district-wide and site-based opportunities for ongoing professional development and PLC work, as well as really thinking through, and this will be work that we'll have looking ahead to 22, 23 and beyond, is how we can think about opportunities that present themselves within our district-wide calendar. So we really want to make sure that we're reviewing that with intentionality and alignment, and also involving our parents and our community in those conversations going into next year and beyond. And then even just thinking about basic core values and shared commitments that are important for us, both in terms of what we have as aspirational values, as well as being intentional about the actual behaviors. So any core value, for example, we could talk about, we really value collaboration within our system, but that has sort of a loaded aspect to what are all the different elements of effective collaboration. And I'll just give you an example. In teamwork, right, we want to make sure that we are open to diversity of thought and different views as we think about decisions that we have to make that represent the work and the investment that we continue to make within our system. And so we can talk about collaboration in a very positive way, and also recognize that you really can't have collaboration without also understanding how we work through conflict and talk through differences of opinion, because we're not always going to agree on every approach that we may be taking. So how do we as a system really elevate that value, as well as the behaviors and the commitments that are underneath that? So you can see some of the different sub-bullets that are represented there. Another thing that was mentioned earlier too is how that appears within an emergenetics framework, so that we're really attentive to our knowledge of ourselves, as well as knowledge of others, and how we can further all of that as we work, again, collaboratively through our system. And I feel like I'm talking a lot, but we're kind of moving right along. So we're just going to keep on going. And Tiffany, I know this is a slot. Do you want to take this one, Tiffany? Because I know you've been very engaged in a lot of these areas.
Well, actually, you're on a momentum and on a roll, so I feel like you should just keep rolling. I would actually also add that in collaboration, teacher appreciation is May 3rd, the week of May 3rd through 7th. So I would encourage everybody also to make sure you reach out and show your appreciation to our amazing staff and students. I mean, our amazing teachers and staff as parents and students. So actually, why don't I just let you roll through numbers, because you're on a roll already. I could cover it, but go for it.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Tiffany, but please don't hesitate to jump in. So obviously we have a lot going on right now within asset management and resource utilization, and really thinking through efficiency, both short and longer term plans. for facility utilization. For those of you that have had a role in our Grace Best Community Dialogue and or our steering committee, thank you for taking the time to really invest your voice into that process. We actually have our second community dialogue scheduled for tomorrow evening. I think there's another slide here just in a few minutes that's just going to elevate that one more time. All of that is working toward making a formal recommendation or set of recommendations to our board as we go into May. So we really believe strongly right now in listening to that input from our community, coming up with, again, what we believe those recommendations represent as far as the best next steps or options to consider. And we're really excited to share that out and help inform what more of that future direction will be at that particular site. We also, if anybody has been tuning in recently, have a real exciting opportunity with an energy savings performance plan. That's an ongoing partnership that has been in progress with Schneider Electric. So that work is currently on a timetable, assuming everything falls into place, where we can review that with our board in June. And pending that approval, we will be in a position where we can launch work going into the summer that includes everything from LED lighting upgrades at all of our facilities to automated systems that are going to support our HVAC and air circulation within multiple sites. We're looking at a variety of longer term savings that we will realize from this energy performance plan. And really it's about creating more sustainable environments, more suitable learning environments for our students and for our staff. And so we're really excited about what that work represents with this ongoing partnership. We're also going to be having some conversation, and this was touched on briefly at our last work session, but based on, and I feel like, again, like I said, we can go into so much of this detail, but ultimately our modulars at 3 of our sites right now, including Lewis Palmer Middle School, Bear Creek Elementary, and Ray Kilmer Elementary, we do not have the same utilization dynamics that we were confronted with from a couple of years ago. So the recommendation at this point would be to remove and uninstall those modulars, and that'll be part of a comprehensive approach to our facilities as well as our budgeting efforts as we're moving into next year and beyond. Just briefly, and I can tell you just sort of the high level numbers here in terms of the application of ESSER dollars, specifically ESSER $2, which is the latest round of federal stimulus monies that are being distributed to local education agencies such as us. We have about 1.2 million that is coming in the form of those stimulus monies that we are eligible to apply for as early as now and all the way through October of 2022. Those dollars have some restrictions to how we utilize those. The state and federal expectations are really that we're demonstrating efforts toward mitigating, and I don't like this phrase learning loss because it sort of implies that we have all this lost learning, but really it's just making sure that we have a recovery plan and an acceleration plan to meet our kids where they are and have the right resources, whether that be through technology and other curriculum materials, as well as how we can reinforce and bolster the efforts of our staff to ensure that we are again, meeting our kids where they are and helping them accelerate and move forward as we work through all of the ripple effects and impacts that have come from COVID. We also have ESSER $3 that are on the horizon. And that dollar amount currently is at around 2.5, but only 2/3 of those dollars can be spent up front, and we have until October of 2023. The feds are wanting to really make sure that states are being accountable to the allocation of those dollars as we keep going. So this will be packaged into bigger budget conversations as we're moving into May and even June. Our preliminary draft budget will be accessible to the community as of our upcoming May 17th meeting, I believe. We'll have ongoing dialogue, of course, about our budgetary priorities and what's informing how our budget takes shape. And we're looking at a June final approval for our 21-22 budget timeline. The other thing I can just briefly touch on is that at the state level, it's good news. We are getting word that we are going to actually be restoring the PPOR dollars that we know are so essential to how we operate. So that's exciting. And my word of caution is it doesn't mean that we go from the rainy day that we were working with really all through this year, and then it's just sun and spring all the way around. We still have a lot of challenges in front of us. So I would encourage you to tune in to our further board conversations as we continue to go forward there. Okay, really quick, I'll go through slide 5, and then I think Tiffany has a couple of slides here as well. So our last goal really is around continuing strong community relationships and effective communication. We're really zeroing in on a variety of different community outreach efforts. Hopefully you all had the opportunity to receive the mailer that was sent a few weeks ago that represented updates around not only a strategic plan, but accomplishments and highlights of our work. We also obviously are trying to keep up everything updated through our website. We have all of our Grace Best materials currently posted at a specific location. A lot of media partnerships and ongoing stories. I saw a note in the chat in terms of that social media presence. So we really appreciate that is being seen and celebrated. So thank you for, again, just being attuned and sharing out all those celebrations as we continue to go. Tiffany, I'm just going to keep rolling. I'm going to, I think, hand it off to you here on this legislative update.
All righty. So yeah, actually, thank you. So Dr. Summers covered our 5 goals and what we've been working on. And then there's a lot going on in the legislature right now. And so I tried to divide it and break it down into how does this apply to our 5 goals and where, and I decided to only focus on the ones that have gone from one chamber to another and that have momentum moving forward or have been signed by the governor. There's a few of them that are still in committee that are important too. But basically there's been 539 bills introduced so far. 83 of those are directly influence education, which is about 15.4% of the legislative bills that we've seen. As these bills make their way through the process, the long bill, which is the one that I'm going to talk the most extensive about because that affects our funding, the deadline for that is April 23rd. It's already passed one chamber, it's on to another. Our School Finance Act is supposed to be finalized by May 26th, and then the adjournment is on June 12th. So there's still lots of room to see a lot of things move up and down as they go through the process. So we saw that there's 3 themes you can look at. There's student-focused bills, there's educator and school district-focused bills, and then there's school finance grants and tax-focused bills. So one of the ones that I'm going to start with some of the ones that are student-focused. One of the ones I found the most interesting to start out with is that a lot of them seem to be touching on safety and security of our students. So for example, one of the ones that's upcoming and it's still moving its way through, but has some positive leverage is measure, and this has been talked about for a while, it's measure to prevent the misuse of safe to tell. And so far it has passed through the Senate unanimously. That's the other thing we're seeing is a lot of bills that are being introduced. We're seeing a lot of partisan bills, but we're also seeing a lot of them pass through the Senate unanimously. This one did, and the bill basically permits the court to issue a court order for production of records to law enforcement or public safety agencies through the district attorney and under seal for materials that identify a reporting party if and it has to be under camera review, but if it's known that the reporting party is using safe to tell in a way that falsely reports an emergency. And what's been happening across the state is there has been some abuse of the safe to tell program, and it's an amazing program and we want to see that succeed. So this is meant to clean that up and keep it from being abused. And if it is being abused, then and there's good cause, then it can be filed in court to allow for there to be to identify who is misusing safe to tell. There's also a lot of bills regarding safety and mental health. HB 1119 is a suicide prevention intervention and post-prevention bill that has actually already been signed by the governor. And it's supposed to lower the suicide rate by enhancing care for persons affected by suicide. This one it's basically, the bill broadens the state's priorities in focusing on suicide and suicide attempts and the after effects of those actions as they apply to survivors and family and friends and healthcare providers and responders. So this one's supposed to, they're just trying to make sure that we can address suicide prevention better. And there's also another one. In October, Congress passed the National Suicide Hotline Designation Act. And it designates 988 as the 3-digit number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline to aid rapid access to suicide prevention mental health reports. And the bill it's trying to implement that 988 number as the 3-digit number for crisis response services here in Colorado. So we'll see, that one hasn't been signed yet, but it's still going through. There's a lot of other bills like protection, since we're in a technology world now. Some bills, a bill that is meant to protect students online by prohibiting excluding parents from being present, recording online students, making judgments on students in the background. And then there's a lot of, interestingly, I found that there were several bills, I'm not going to say a lot, but several bills that have been sitting in committee right now that clean up or tighten laws and penalties for sexual assault and exploitation of minors. And so there's several of those bills that are making their way. There's also a bill that expands the non-discrimination policies to include gender identity and gender expression. There's a bill that also has passed through the both chambers, that is sitting in committee, that I found really interesting. It's a bill that amends the high school innovation learning pilot program, and the bill allows schools of a school district to participate with a district or and it allows the students to demonstrate, a district to demonstrate how their innovative learning plan benefits underserved students. So that one I thought was kind of cool too, but it's only sitting in committee. There's a lot of bills also that deal with, we're talking about curriculum. One of the ones that has passed Senate unanimously and is now in the House Education Committee amends the Colorado READ Act, and it requires us to submit to the State Department of Education, and they have to post it on their website. The core and supplemental reading curriculum, detailed description by grade used in each of its schools, core supplemental and intervention programs at each school, and the number of students enrolled in kindergarten and 1st through 3rd grades who have read plans, as well as the number of students who have achieved reading competency. And our budget and narrative has to explain the use of the Colorado READ Act intervention money. And then we have to post that to our website as a link. So that's one of the ones that affects curriculum that's still in the works. Another curriculum one requires districts to include costs of post-secondary education in the financial literacy curriculum. And it's aimed at setting aside monies or grants to help students catch up who have been affected by, there's another one that sets aside monies to help kids catch up on COVID. There's actually several of them that have gone through the list on that one. Another curriculum one that has gone through is the civics. I've referred to this before, and this bill directs the State Board of Education to update academic content standards for civics, and it also encourages districts to partner with local organizations to solicit donations to improve the quality of civics education. That one has passed the Senate and is now on to the House. Some of the ones that affect us as board members directly that I thought was an interesting one is, and this one's actually been signed by the governor already, is non-substantive emails and open meeting laws. And basically under current provisions, the open meeting law states that if elected officials use electronic mail to discuss public business amongst themselves, the electronic mail, it constitutes a meeting that is subject to those open meeting requirements. But the bill basically says that if boards are using the emails to talk about dates or arrangements, or to forward information that has been forwarded to them, or to put information up saying, can we talk about this, that does not fall under those open meeting laws. Another one that affects the board, which I would not have thought this would go through as far as it has, but it's already passed to another chamber. And that's the one I had talked about before that says that board members may be able to be compensated. That one's, again, I've shared my public opinion on that, in that dollars are so limited, and I think those dollars should be put to teachers and our staff and our schools before we have hearts to serve. And so that's just my personal opinion, but it's still moving down the line. And then some other ones that are to help with teachers. The HB 1010 is Diverse K-12 Educator Workforce Report. And this bill directs the Department of Higher Education and the Department of Education to form a work group on diversity in the educator workforce. College admissions, use of national scores. This bill is aimed at removing the requirement that Colorado colleges and universities have to, the end of the bill, applicants may still choose to submit national assessment scores, but the institution does not have to require those scores. There's another one that's going through 1104, professional educator licensure renewal. I'm trying to be quick with these, but these are all really important, I think, because they do affect us. This bill extends the renewal period for professional teachers and special service educators, principals, from licenses to 7 years instead of 5 years. And then another bill that it's going to extend the deadline for kindergarten through third grade teachers to complete their evidence-based training in teaching reading until the beginning of the 2022-23 school year. It was supposed to be the beginning of the 21-22 school year, so they're looking to extend that. The other thing that they're looking to extend is it's called Teacher and Learning Condition Survey, and this bill would allow educational service personnel who support licensed staff to take the biannual teaching and learning condition survey. And basically the survey is taken every 2 years. And right now it's only for teachers. So they're trying to give that, to expand that to also the educational service personnel. Let's see what else. Educator pay raise fund. This bill creates the educator pay raise fund for money the General Assembly may appropriate or transfer. And the CDE must distribute any money appropriated for the fund to assist school districts, charter schools, and the BOCES in increasing teacher salaries and the hourly wage paid to other employees. And then finally, supporting educator workforce in Colorado. This bill makes several changes aimed at increasing and supporting the educator workforce in Colorado. It allows a school district or a charter school to employ a person who holds an adjunct instructor authorization to teach in all content areas in order to address recurring challenges. I'm reading this right now, and establish a diverse workforce. The bill also creates new teacher recruitment, education and preparation. It's called TREP. Program, and the program would allow participants to concurrently enroll in post-secondary courses in the 2 years directly following the year in which the participant was enrolled in the 12th grade or a local education provider. So basically a student it's another continuing education opportunity. And finally, it creates the educator recruitment and retention program, which provides support to members of the armed forces. So that opens up the door for more educators. I'm trying to think, I think that's pretty much those ones. And then we go, the other ones that people have been asking about is there was a bill that has now been killed for the year. And that was one that dealt with disciplinary action. It faced a lot of lobbying from from local law enforcement to local school boards. And it was a 30-page bill that they laid it over. They listened to the listen to the lobbying and listen to people coming and testifying in the testimony. So they've laid it over. And then they did, as I think I already covered before, we did end up getting that grant, the waiver from the federal government for our CMAS testing. And then finally, I want to talk about the budget and finances that have come through from the legislation. There's been a long list of programs that were mowed down last year due to them just trying to balance the budget due to COVID. And the toughest hit was obviously K-12. And so the decision was made to last year, if you remember, to double the budget stabilization factor from like I think it was 570 something million to about 1.17 billion. And another reduction went to the cash grant funds, which is the building through the building excellent the best grant, building excellent schools today. And that lost 100 million in order to balance that 2021 budget. But those cuts are in the process of being reversed. The General Assembly's Joint Budget Committee set aside enough funds to shrink that BS factor back to the 572 million that it was in 21-22, and it's proposed to return that 100 million back to best. They also addressed the smaller education programs that went to the committee, and it should be finalized. Like I said, that should be finalized by April 23rd, and that's called the long bill. And there was about 24 measures that went and that were considered with the Senate this week. And some of the key proposals for restoring funding to education programs it calls for 7.8 billion in spending on K-12 education, and which is an 8.7% increase from the 2021 bill, and almost 5 billion would come from the state, with the rest, of course, being covered by us locally. So school districts would get about 8,857 per pupil on average, which is a 9.7% increase. That's average. That's not necessarily what we will see. And that has not been finalized yet. But so far, the interesting thing is there's been little, usually the long bill gets in a big myriad of debate, and we've seen little debate on it thus far. Which is good. That's good news. So they've appropriated 3 million in marijuana revenue for behavioral health professionals. That's what happens when I talk fast. Another 250 in marijuana revenue would go to enhance school safety, incident response programs. 2.5 million in marijuana revenue for CDE's K-5 social and emotional health grant programs. And then the transition to high school, 800,000 in the general fund to 9th grade student success programs. And then 2.8 million of the funds all funds increased for mill levy equalization payments, aid to the charter school institutes to partially match the funding district schools receive from special property. And then also during that JBC discussion, during the long bill discussion, senators approved an additional 10 million from the state education fund for special education programs for students with disabilities. And special education is particularly poorly funded in Colorado. Legislators consistently fail to allocate enough money to meet the standards. So while spending for special education does increase each year, those increases don't really keep up with the pace, with the growth in the number of students that are identified as having special needs. So with that, the bill calls for the schools to get at least, the guidelines call for schools to get at least about 1,200 for every student with disability, and more than 6,000 for each student with more significant challenges. And ours state typically falls short. So this budget has already included that 1.9% increase for special education, but it also allocates an additional 10 million increase to special education for a bill of 220 million, which is a 6.7% increase to the special education obligation. That's about it for our legislative updates. Any questions?
Okay, hopefully not, because we're running really behind now. So thank you for all of that. That's a lot of stuff.
It is, that's
Um,
what I said, and they're at the end of the session, so I assume that we won't see any more from the session. And let me go scroll through these really quick. It will get, if you don't mind, Vicki, running through these really quick since we're already 10 over.
Are you talking about the PowerPoint,
Yep.
Tiffany?
Yep,
All right.
I think we covered most of
um,
it. Yep, so we'll go ahead and skip that one.
Talked about Grace
Dr. Summers
Best.
already talked about Grace Best, and then we asked if we had any questions.
okay.
Oh, we got one more.
We have
Can do
one
this
more.
Real quick, Nanette. We got to
Oh,
do this real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, I don't want to do it real quick. I want to like pause the whole meeting, but really what we need to do is express appreciation to our very own Dr. Benton. So for those of you that do not know, she is going to be retiring. She's actually moving on from public education. And she has spent 20 amazing years here in our district. And I know she has been very vested, not only in our DAAC team, but just in so many different realms and so many different areas. Her impact and her service, I think, are extremely worthy of a lot of recognition and a lot of celebration, which we will have more opportunity to do. But since this was our official last DAAC meeting of the year, we wanted to express our appreciation. Michelle, thank you. I see all, yes, plenty of waves and claps and all of that. And I'm sorry, Lori, we got to kind of make you blush a little bit, but thank you for all of what you've done. And Nanette, with that, I will hand it back over to you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to that this evening.
She's not going to know what to do with herself. That's all I can say. I don't think Lori knows how not to have a life of meeting from meeting to meeting. It's going to be interesting. I would like to be a fly on the wall. Oh my God, she's probably one of the people that's like only worse than me as far as, you know, when you say no, I'm not doing that today, because it's like, ah! Okay.
And with that, I will stop.
Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, so now we are going to go on to Lori, because she is going to report for Annette Bass on GELT, and then she's going to go into, oops, nope, let's see. Then we're going to go back to, oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. And then she's going to go on with Michael Brom for the UIP approval and submissions as well. So Laura, you take it away.
So thank you. I'll believe it or not, I started teaching at the age of 21 and I haven't aged a bit. So if you want to find out, how to retire, just start teaching at 21. Okay, so here we go. Thank you for the embarrassing pictures. And you can see how much younger I was way back when I started at the district office 10 years ago, because that picture with the crown, and that was a long time ago. So I've obviously aged quite a bit. Okay, GELT. So let's talk GELT, Gifted Education Leadership Team. And just so you know, Annette wished she could be here. She did have a family issue. And so we wish her, we send our condolences with her situation, but she has prepared this. So I'm going to do my best to present. She would have done a much better job. So we do have a wide variety of GELT members. We have a handful of familiar names on here who are also people who serve on our DAAC. GELT is actually an offshoot of DAAC. It also helps us with our compliance because, believe it or not, gifted education in the state of Colorado does have quite a bit of its own rules and regulations. It is supported by state statute. If you're ever wondering why we do what we do for gifted education students, we do have a separate gifted education state statute for that. All right, next slide. Thank you, Vicki, for doing this. The GELT is comprised of a variety of stakeholders, including building level leadership, the gifted facilitators at each level, as well as parents and community members and DAAC members. So it's a wide variety of folks who sit on that. And it is an advisory group that gets to help support, as I said, all the compliance components. There's actually 12 different compliance pieces that we're measured on from a state level. The district gifted education process that we utilize within our district, and it includes Monument Academy. We include Monument Academy since we are their administrative unit or our oversight for gifted programming. So we do have our facilitators meet on a regular basis, about monthly. They meet both by level, including elementary and secondary, as well as whole group. We do have a professional learning community where we share best practice, dig into data, have conversations. We also have what we call our IRTs. We love our acronyms, by the way, in GT land. So if you don't know what one means, just ask. IRT is basically a review committee that we use to identify students as gifted. It is a blind review. What I mean by that is that the student's name is not included in that information. So that basically what we're doing is looking at the data, which is a body of evidence to identify students based on the gifted criteria. All of that information, by the way, is posted on our website. We do have some parent groups in the past. Pre-COVID, we could meet face-to-face, and it's called SANG. Devon has actually helped lead some of those, as well as some of our other gifted facilitators throughout the district. Our school-based supports for gifted education include parent meetings, a variety of book studies that are offered, as well as we do send a survey after every single ALP meeting with a parent to get feedback based on those compliance expectations. And we also send monthly emails with tidbits and information for gifted parents. Well, I guess all parents are gifted. I mean, parents of gifted children. That's what I meant there. And then our website has a ton of information on it as well. So feel free to go and check it out. We do have a standardized gifted identification process, and all of our procedures, including if someone wants to have a mediation or that sort of thing, all of that's available on our website, as well as early access documents. So if we have anybody who lives within the district who wants to have their 4-year-old enter into kindergarten early, all of that information and process is available there. All right, Vicki, you're doing great. Ding. Okay, thanks. Really quickly, I talked a little bit about all of those pieces that we are held for compliance. And we do have a variety of program plans and reviews that happen periodically across the state comes in and reviews our information. And the GELT is one of the ways that we keep on track with all of the expectations within all of those bolded spaces. And so we did a complete review of our 4-year gifted program plan. We have a SEGR, which is basically a general education review. I call it an audit, but CDE doesn't really want you to call it an audit. But I think anything that gives you an improvement plan afterwards really is an audit. The most amazing piece of it, though, is that we were in complete and total compliance in our last SEGR. They found absolutely nothing for us other than a couple of suggestions here and there, which is incredible. So kudos to all of our facilitators and our building administration and our teachers for helping meet all of those pieces. So with that, we did submit our 2020 plan, and that's later on in the presentation. Just people always ask, how many students are identified gifted within our district, and what's, quote, normal? And we hover between 10 and 12% any given year for gifted identification. I always have people ask, well, do we get more funding if we have more students who are identified gifted? The answer is no. Gifted funding from the state is based on the total percentage of students in our district compared to the entire state population. So it is funded completely differently than special education, where special education does have an additional count date, and they submit additional information there. We identify our students, and you can see all of the different percentages, and you probably are noticing that the secondaries have a higher percentage of identified students. And part of that is because we don't do a full identification until 3rd grade, meaning that we give a COGAT, or cognitive aptitude test, to all students in 3rd and 6th grade within the district. Monument Academy does the exact same process, except they start with a screener, and they do that in grades 3, 5, and 7. And so part of what you're seeing is when you have 3 grade levels that haven't quite had a full-blown gifted identification process, you'll see it looks like the numbers are a little lower at the elementary. The other piece you have to keep in mind is that we do attract a lot of students for our programming at the secondary level, and we have higher numbers of students who attend due to all of the different varieties of programming that we have. So you'll see an increase in percentages of giftedness there. All right. When you get this slide presentation, these are all hyperlinked, so you can actually go and dig in if you'd like to. It does show the budget for how we expend state dollars. There's a link to our comprehensive program plan, which was in response to that SEGR, as well as the additional grant application. So we do apply for additional funds every single year, that Universal Screening and Qualified Personnel Grant. That allows us to pay for the 6th grade COGAT, as well as additional time for Annette Bass's position. Her entire position is grant funded. This is really hard to see, but basically what that says is that's a screenshot, which we were really proud of. It says we were in complete and total compliance from that non-audit audit. And we were so excited about it, we kept a screenshot of it just for posterity, because that's quite a heavy lift. This just gives you an idea of how much money we spend as a district from what is provided from the state versus what actually is spent by Lewis Palmer School District. And as you can see, and part of this too, to go all the way back to the last MLO that was passed in '99, there was dedicated funding set aside for GT. So that is part of the MLO. But what I would tell you is that we expend far more in our GT programming than a lot of folks around the state, because we believe that our students do need that additional support and enrichment. So you can see the comparative nature of how much we spend versus how much we actually get from the state. That is our comprehensive program plan. It's a 5-year plan. I will tell you, it just details out how we meet every single expectation laid out in board rule. And so feel free, you can read through that if you would like, but it does demonstrate how we align with our practices to making sure that we're identifying all students, areas where we have some growth opportunities, which would be we're working to identify students who are historically underrepresented in gifted populations. So we're constantly looking for new ways to be able to screen students. An example is utilizing some nonverbal assessments to be able to make sure that we are screening students who have disabilities, as well as students who do not speak English as a primary language. So we have lots of different opportunities for growth there. We're also constantly looking at gender discrepancy in our identification. And so those are other ways you would see that within that program plan of areas that we're exploring. We've made a lot of gains this year to increase how we identify students to make sure we're really meeting the expectations. And what we look at is if we see a percentage of students, let's say 8% of our students are students with disabilities, we want to see that the percentage of students represented within our gifted population is also 8%, if that makes sense. So that's how we look at those metrics. We do the same thing for race, gender, as well as students with 504s and language acquisition plans. This just shows you the money that we've applied for around that grant. Since it's been available, we have applied every single year, and you can see that each year we ask for more money, and each year we get more money. It's how that works, right? Just kidding, the state keeps funding it at a higher rate. So that's one reason why we continue to be able to get more funding from it. You can also see how we do ask for quite a bit to help offset that qualified personnel piece. And we've been able to offset basically a quarter of Annette's salary, as well as purchased materials for testing. How did I do on time? Whew. District gifted education in 8 minutes or less. Let's see what the chat says.
Well, actually, we need to go to UIP, so you have less than 10 minutes to do that.
Well, I'm going to kick it off to Dr. Brahm. Dr. Brahm is going to share the highlights and big picture pieces of the UIP. He was instrumental in helping all of the sites this year, completing their UIPs, and he also led the charge with the district UIP. Dr. Brahm.
All right, thank you, Dr. Benton. And if Vicki, if you would put the Word document up, that would be great. And as she's doing that, I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Benton and to Mrs. Johnson and wish them the very best. I have had the distinct pleasure of working side by side with both of them for the last 4 years, and they are not only dear colleagues, but dear friends. And I am tremendously blessed and a far better educator having had worked with them. So thank you to both of you. and I wish you the very best. All right, I'll try to not get verklempt. So here is the UIP data that we have, and we have the challenges, the root causes, and the improvement strategies and action plan. Now keep in mind that this is a draft that has not yet been submitted, and we will be submitting this on Thursday. And a couple of the highlights from this within the data section, as anticipated, we did notice a decline in both achievement and growth data based on both the district-wide map test that we give in grades, primarily grades K through 8, and then the local PSAT, SAT data, which is typically given grades 9 through 11. We do have the spring map test coming up here, actually in April and in May. And so we'll be going back and looking at how did our students do in terms of achievement and growth, looking back to the fall, from fall to spring, and also winter to spring. And we will also have the Colorado PSAT and the Colorado SAT. Those are actually being given this very week. That data is typically available in the middle of June. Students usually get their scores the first or second week of May, but district-wide and building-wide data is typically available around the third week of June. Now, going back to the MAP test, a couple things about the MAP test. NWA, which is the parent company who owns the MAP test program, they had a study that came out the early half of 2020 that indicated they predicted that there would be a decline, a more precipitous decline in math than in reading, and we saw that locally. That being said, going from fall to winter, we did see some gains, some exponential gains in both achievement and growth scores. So if you will, we're talking about closing that gap from where we anticipated students being and where they actually were. So that's encouraging. And then we're going to take a look at our local PSAT, SAT data. Those tests were given last August. Typically they're given in September. I believe that this past year we gave them in August. And then we'll look at how our students do on the Colorado PSAT and SAT to look at how is our achievement changing from the fall to the spring and be able to determine growth from that as well. The fourth bullet point under data talks a little bit about the 3 student groups that are our primary focus within our district UIP. These groups are groups that we have focused on in the past and will continue to do so. Students with disabilities in math and reading, middle school students for reading, and K-3 students with significant reading deficiencies, or SRD. So to talk a little bit about, briefly about each of those groups. With students with disabilities in math and reading, obviously we're looking at achievement, but we're also looking at growth. And one of the things that I really want to point out that our staff and our students in our exceptional student services department, they really deserve a lot of kudos, because our students, when we look at students with disabilities in D38 in comparison to students with disabilities in other districts across the state of Colorado, the growth rate of our students with disabilities in both math and reading is tremendous. It's typically in the top quartile across the board, across all grade levels, year in and year out. And that's a credit to all of the hard work that our staff are doing and partnering with our families and the support at home that our students have. And of course, the hard work that our students are putting in and day out. Students at the middle school for reading, we're in the process of an early adoption with our reading curriculum at the middle school. So we're looking at how can we implement that with fidelity, with the intent of raising scores there and increasing our growth rates in CMAS and on MAP as well. And then for K-3, significant reading deficiency, typically this goes back to the READ Act. And with the READ Act, we are oftentimes looking at read plans for our students. And then this year, we also took a look at our DIBELS Next data for students in grades K through 3. And last year, with, I believe it was our 2019-20 data from beginning of the year to the middle of the year, we had about 74% of our students who were at or above benchmark. And this year, when we looked at 2020, 2021, beginning of the year to middle of the year, we were at about 70%. So it was a bit of a decline, but that was not unanticipated. So as you look through each of these other bolded categories, we talk about the root causes. We're looking at professional development and progress monitoring in reading and math, literacy intervention alignment. This goes back to what Devon mentioned with curriculum instruction and assessment coherence. And the tighter we can strengthen that, the more intentional we are with all three of those categories, the more efficient and effective those will be. And then the targeted professional development and curriculum alignment in reading. And that's just an ongoing process, as it was mentioned earlier. We're still in the midst of our K-5 literacy adoption. The improvement strategies, as noted in those 4 bulleted points, we're talking about the very programs that were just mentioned, the professional development that complements that work, and also the provision model in bullet 2 under the improvement strategies. So as we adopt resources to use at K-5 for literacy over the next 2 years, we're looking at a provisional model where we're going to be implementing that, and we're going to be looking at data. And are we seeing the gains that we would like to see in literacy? And then that also falls into bullet 3, where we're talking about the strategic literacy plan for K-5. And that goes through this year and then the 2 years that follow for the provisional implementation. And that is the implementation plan that we'll have for K-5, and then also leading into our grades 6 through 8 literacy curricular programs. So any questions, reflections? If anything comes to mind after our DAAC meeting this evening, you're always welcome to email any of us, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Brahm. Anybody have any questions? The UIP is something that has to be done every year. We've kind of gone from reviewing each specific school to talking about it in smaller groups to this general one. So it's I guess nice to know that it had to have a full summary on the whole district, kind of in a nice little ball and package there. So that was really nice, Dr. Brahm. Thank you. Good to see it that different way. I've seen it all different ways. So interesting. And you said this is going to go in next week?
We are wrapping it up for this Thursday.
This Thursday. Okay, thank you. All right.
You do actually have to have everyone vote to approve it.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve that UIP as specified so far from Dr. Brahm? So we have a motion from Mr. O'Connor, and we have a second from Holly Rollins. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor and Holly. And everybody in favor, please signify by saying aye. Oops, sorry. Scrolling down here, see if we've got just about everybody coming in here. Don't forget to vote, everybody. I'm starting to sound like one of those commercials. Oh my God. Okay, thank you. All right. Looks pretty good. I think we've got that as an approval. At least got a majority there. Okay. So with that, we will move on. Thank you, Dr. Brahm. That was great. Good timing. The last order of business this evening, if there's nothing else, does anybody have anything else at all?
I have one thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Normally we get to thank you in person and celebrate you for your 2 years of service. So if everybody could, clap and say thank you. And we just want to say thank you so much for your leadership and for your willingness to try new things, and to show up every single time engaged and ready to do the good work of DAAC. So Nanette, we've worked together forever on DAAC, it seems like, and I can't believe you're done. So it's so crazy. It's a little bittersweet. So
likewise.
Yeah, I know too.
You're
Shay.
just leaving. You're just leaving because I'm going off the board, right?
Right. No, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it is. Yep. So I just
Oh.
wanted to say thank you so much for your service, and we appreciate you. And
Well,
so,
thank
and
you.
you can expect a small token from us at some point in the next week, hopefully.
None needed, but it's been a lot of fun. I love learning and seeing everybody and that kind of thing. It's been very, very hard to do this virtually, because this is kind of one of those things that I like to see everybody's face and chat and stuff like that too. So, but I'm a little more social than the rest of my family, who would prefer to stay in their house. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this. So because I rotate off the board this time as a co-chair, Christy Milks, who is sitting in here, wave at everybody, Christy. There's Christy. Okay.
Here, I'll say
so-
something too. Hi.
Oh, good. Yay. So Christy will be taking my place, and we have to elect another co-chair, which we interviewed. We had a wonderful nomination committee this year with Holly Robinson and Melissa Bovey, right? Marissa, right?
Bouvet.
Bouvet. Dang it. I knew I was going to get that wrong. So anyway, I just know her from seeing her like every meeting in the world. So I keep wanting, keep trying to get both of those two taking those positions. But they found a wonderful person, and Dr. Benton and I interviewed her. It's been a couple weeks ago now. Her name is Kelly Bain. And she came back to us with a lot of questions about the position and what her expectations were going to be. She did not have any students in the district anymore, correct? Am I
She
right?
does, actually.
She does,
Yeah,
okay.
she will. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's right. Anyhow, so she's looking forward to this. She's not available to attend this evening, but if I can entertain Holly and Marissa, if you guys could entertain your findings there, that would be great.
Sure. So we are you asking about the process we went through?
No. I just
No,
need
just make a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I was like, oh my God, what am I on the hook for? Sorry. Just a little caught off guard. Yes. So we would like to formally nominate for consideration for the DAAC, Kelly Bain, to step into a DAAC leadership role to support Kelly. It is a 2-year term. And so that is our nomination. And so we'll put it out there for a vote.
And this is Marissa. I'll second that nomination.
Thank you, Marissa. Okay, and everybody in favor, please signify by saying aye. Okay, I think we're almost there. Okay, wonderful. So we have our new co-chair in Kelly Bain. And with that, I think we are finally done for the year of 2021 or 2020-2021 school year, I should say. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure with everybody. And I will call for a motion to adjourn. And so moved by Mr. O'Connor. And seconded by Holly, Ms. Rollins, and thank you, everybody. I'm assuming that everybody's going to say aye to this, so. Yep, everybody go thumbs up. Okay, all right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the school year. And congratulations to the rest of you that have graduates this year. Thank you, Dr. Summers, for stepping in at PR. Very, very grateful for that. And thank you, Vicki, for doing your excellent job. And Dr. Benton, Man. Okay. We'll talk to you all later. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.